How you doing, man? Fantastic. And before we get started, I do have to say, now, very impressive stuff here, but I just want to let you guys know this guy is a very important big deal. I found this picture. Now I don't know if you guys know who's in this photo. Show of hands. Who knows who's in this photo besides Humble? You right there. Who's that?
Nick Jonas.
That's Nick Jonas, right? And the funniest and best part about this photo was when I first saw it, I didn't even notice Nick and Bianca Chopra. So not only is this guy a big enough deal to be invited to that wedding, steal a swagged out photo with the two of them, but he also literally stole the photo. That speaks volumes to his energy.
That's actually the official wedding photo for us. That's the one where everyone's taking pictures with the bride and groom.
Is that right?
We're just we're going to B-boy stance it.
Dude, I love it. With the blue suit? That's just so swag.
Mint chocolate chip, that's what I call myself.
I love it. All right, so we're gonna real talk today. I got some cards here with some questions, but we can take a seat. We're gonna get into it, trying to be candid. We're gonna talk about the book. We're gonna talk about a little bit about your life, your background, which kind of leads me to my first question.
Yeah.
So you wrote a book called Unlearn.
Yes.
And you're talking to folks right now at Google who've literally staked their entire career on everything that they've learned. So tell me, what does unlearn mean? What are we supposed to be unlearning, and how does that aid itself in happiness?
I think a lot of the times, the most important ideas that we need to understand to better our lives, we've already had. We've always had them. Oftentimes we had them as kids, and then life comes and it piles us up with a lot of bullshit, and then all of a sudden we think that we're somebody else, or we need to be something different. And when I was working as a school teacher, and it's a story I tell in the book, is if you tell a child, hey, put on your boots and then put on your snow pants, the kid puts on his boots first and then tries to put his snow pants over the boots. And you're like, oh, I get it. They took it exactly literal. And you realize how much of an empty vessel these kids really are. And we were once these same empty vessels. And then slowly but surely, all the stuff that society teaches us, our parents teach us, family teaches us, media teaches us, it crystallizes in who we are. And then we start to think that, this was tattooed into our soul, and this is who we are the whole time. And the reality is it's not. And we can go back to a better essence of who we were by not acquiring more things, but instead letting go of a lot of stuff. And that's kind of where Unlearn was. So when I was in my most challenging time in life, I was searching for that Tumblr quote or that idea that was going to save me from all of my troubles. And then I realized that I wasn't going to learn anything new. I had to let go of my expectations, the idealistic view I had of the world, my mentality to blame everybody else except for myself for my problems and my circumstances. And when I began letting go of these things, I started feeling lighter. And as I felt lighter, I was able to take a bigger journey inside myself, learn who I was. Because they always say be yourself, but you can't be yourself if you don't know yourself. Mm-hmm. So as I got to know myself better, I was able to live a more authentic life, which often people refer to as their best life, right? So from that perspective, I think it's important to kind of let go more than we gain. And I mean, society, consumerism, everything it teaches us that you have to acquire more. You need more and more and more and more to be better. But I think the reality is we really need to be polishing things off. We need to be grab some big sandpaper and get rid of all this rust, because a lot of this is formed over the years and we don't even realize it.
Totally. Now, yeah. you just talked a little bit about, I mean, we're already off script, by the way. This is
fantastic.
Over here. You just talked a little bit about, kind of knowing yourself. And you're also wearing a shirt that says create rather than find yourself.
Yes, also designed by me.
I had a feeling that was definitely not a plug, but it worked. It worked
not
out
yet.
Really
we'll plug it later.
So with that in mind, though, who are you? I mean, I read it off the card, but who are you that gave you? I always like to think that our lives are the perfect curriculum for everything that we'll need. But who are you, and where have you been, and what have you learned and seen that kind of made you feel like you could write this book, and that it would resonate with people?
I don't think who I am is what is important to me writing the book. I think me writing the book is the important part to me writing the book. You meet a lot of people who talk about, oh, I want to write a book one day. And you're like, you just have to write it. There's no qualifications or degrees or template that you have to follow. You just literally have to put pen to paper or just start smashing on the keyboard and let those ideas come out. And I think for me, what I realize is, you know, the things that kind of tickle my fancy and get me excited are like stimulation and learning. I'm a lifelong learner. That doesn't necessarily mean I was a great student. That doesn't necessarily mean, you know, I'm sitting and reading books all day. You know, sometimes I'm reading, you know, I'm reading the headlines and that's it. And sometimes it's just watching YouTube videos. But I enjoy learning new things. I enjoy having my biases challenged. I enjoy being like, oh, I thought this was how it was going to be, or this is how it's supposed to be, and then have somebody just totally flip me on my head. And it doesn't attack my ego or my identity if my beliefs are challenged. It actually gets me excited. It lets me know that I'm not growing stale. It lets me know that I'm still able to grow. Because, you know, if you're not growing, then you're not really alive. So for me, it's that's who I am, and the excitement of like having this spark in my brain and being like, oh my God, one day this is going to be tangible. I want to make it happen. As I was saying, that music video that we just saw, like and that's because Lily Singh is just a monster in the way she works and productivity. You know, we wrote that song, we recorded that song, and edited the song, and then we shot the video, edited the video, everything in 72 hours. And you know, having an idea of like, hey, this would be really cool if we can like be on, you know, the Toronto Raptors court. Well, how do we do it? I don't know. Let's call everybody. And it was actually Google that made it happen.
All right.
It wasn't anybody else. Google, they pulled the right lever and they got us into the stadium. But it's just, you know, having these ideas and realizing that impossible literally means nothing. We can make anything happen, and that for me is so exciting. And the further I go on this journey, the more pages of my book of excuses I have to keep ripping out and be like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, guys like me aren't supposed to do that. People that look like me aren't supposed to be here. And then you're slowly like, no, like you continually pave your own path and just magical things happen. And normally it's just about leaving the house, talking to new people, and using your fear as a compass rather than viewing your fear as a roadblock.
That's awesome, and that makes a lot of total sense behind the whole ethos of create yourself.
Yeah.
So I like that you talked about the music video that we were just watching, because you're quite the MC, and I know that
I get busy.
Yeah, you get busy, you get down. Yeah.
I am not humble about my rap skills.
Yeah, I think that's more like a funny play on words at that point.
It is. Humble is also a verb. People forget that.
Oh, wait. Okay, so let's talk about that. How did you get to the name Humble?
The name was purely born out of spite. I knew it. In Sikh heritage and Sikh philosophy, the #1 challenge to your peace is your ego. And so when I was on hip-hop forums and just participating on like my favorite Outcast chat boards, my username was just the word humble. And then I got involved in like rap battles, online rap battles. And then in a rap battle, I had a line that said, rappers are basic, MCs are more advanced, but I'm even better, I'm the poet. And it was just a cocky line to kind of say that I'm better than these rappers and MCs. I ended up winning this really big tournament where I had to like compete with like 5, 6 different guys. And to rub it in, I changed my name to Humble the Poet.
Did you do it in time for the actual... Did you win and then you changed your name?
No, I won, then changed it.
Okay.
To rub it in, yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody knew. And years later, I'm in a friend's basement, and we have a microphone against the mattress, and I recorded my first verse, and there was like 8 guys in the room because that's what you do when you rap, just fill the room full of guys. And they're like, well, do you have a rap name yet? And I was like, I was thinking Humble the Poet. And they're like, that's a stupid name. And then one guy's like, that name's too long. You need a short name. You need like a 1-syllable name. I'm like, you know what? Screw all you guys. I'm going to stick with Humble the Poet because you guys don't think it'll work. I'm going to make it work. And, they were right in some instances. This was right before social media tags and names. A shorter name would have probably been better. But now I'm stuck with it. I'm stubborn. So it's not going anywhere.
I like that. Have you been stubborn your whole life?
Yes.
Yeah?
Very.
So this is not something that just came with your rise. It's like you always had that spirit of, I got this.
I've been stubborn and defiant. And yeah, just recently I connected with a cousin. He lives in New Zealand. And our schedules matched up in Germany. And I met him for the first time since like '93. And he said to me, my first memory of you was you were like 5 years old. And you just kept looking at me saying no. And I wasn't even asking you to do anything. You just kept looking at me defiantly like, if you do ask me to do something, the answer is no. And I kind of realized that kind of clicked something in the patterns of my life where I definitely am not a fan of being told what to do. I definitely enjoy the idea of trying to mold things my way versus trying to fit in. And there were a lot of challenging years where I definitely didn't fit in, and it almost broke me, and I wanted to just give up and kind of blend in with everybody else. But then eventually you realize that, you know, as Dr. Seuss says, you know, why try to fit in when you were born to stand out?
It's funny that you say that. So we have a building here on campus, bin 7. Oh, nope, I made that up. Bin 4, that literally has that printed on the wall. Coincidentally, on the way to the bathroom.
Nice.
I'm not really sure what the idea behind that was, but I just noticed it for the first time yesterday because I love that quote. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that you grew up with a Sikh religious background. My curiosity there is, so you know we have a audacious, young humble, Sikh religious backgrounds. How do the two of those influences meet together, and how have they shaped you, and like how you've lived your life and ultimately written this book?
I mean, definitely Sikhi can be viewed as a religion. I think it's more importantly, it's more of a philosophy, and it more kind of falls under the umbrella of Eastern philosophy. What do you think about Buddhism, Hinduism, just the idea of cyclical life? You know, out here, a lot of the philosophies, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, are straight lines. There's a beginning, middle, end. Do all these things, and then there's something, a reward or a consequence at the end of it. Whereas on the Eastern side, everything's in a cycle. You know, birth and death, the seasons, everything go that way. So I think under those two umbrellas, I only kind of look at the world being shaped by those main philosophies. My parents force-fed Sikhi as a dogmatic religion to me as a kid, the same way parents force their kids to play the piano, and you hate every moment of it, but then you grow up and you're like, oh, now I have a really full tool belt of things that are really going to benefit me. And I mean, the idea that turmeric is so popular now and everybody eats it, and that was the stuff that kids would make fun of me for having stains on my clothes, and they'd call it curry back then. And it's kind of like seeing how things have changed so much. So I think what it ended up being was my mom kind of sold the idea to me, telling me these stories, because there's a lot of civil disobedience in Sikh heritage. Punjabi Sikhs specifically in India right now only represent 2% of the population. So I'm a minority there, I'm a minority here, I'm a minority everywhere I go. So ideas of safe spaces don't exist for me, don't exist for my people. We've never had them. If we do have them, we'll probably feel very uncomfortable because that's not something we're used to. Kind of having a history of thriving in chaos, having a history of not being planted on one piece of land has definitely encouraged me to continue my nomadic lifestyle as well. The philosophy in itself, Sikh means student. So to be, so to see me already being a student of life, me getting an education, being an elementary school teacher, all school teachers and have signed up to be lifelong learners as well. And I think it's that natural need to try to learn as much as you can. And again, the way my parents had taught it to me was about, being students of God, worshiping God. And the thing is, all the texts are written in poetry, so you can easily take the word God and replace it with the truth. So you can be students of the truth. And now, instead of looking at the will of God, you can be looking at the will of truth. And that can be everything from respecting what gravity is, respecting human nature, understanding how the world works, to becoming students of that. And with that, it's an endless journey of learning the truth. So what my truth is today on this level won't be my truth in 5 years. So now you become this lifelong learner, understanding universal truths and personal truths and trying to have them come to terms with each other. And that's a never-ending journey for me. So for me, in the beginning, there was a lot of rejection for it because there are a lot of cultural influences. So when I first started rapping, people were like, oh, this guy thinks he's black. Why is he rapping? And I'm sitting there like, every hymn I was ever taught to memorize rhymed. Over half of the gurus that I was taught to learn from ran armies and, had bodies under their belt. And I was listening to gangster rap before NWA. Like this was, my gurus rhymed and killed. Like this was something I was always exposed to. Like if you go to temples in Toronto, like they have pictures, photographs of dead bodies hanging on the walls of young men who fought for a cause and gave up their lives. Like, we were exposed to this. We're a very martial people. You know, we've always been encouraged to be tiyar bar tiyar. Tiyar bar tiyar means always be ready, always be prepared. You know, there's, you know, some people believe in a ceremonial dagger, but the reality of that is we've been fighting wars, and we've been doing that because we've been a minority our entire existence. So seeing the connections, and as I got older, being able to own it myself and being like, all right, here are the elements that really connect with me authentically. And it is, you know, to be not only a student, but to be a soldier. And then learning that, hey, the soldier isn't that guy who's just simply outside on a Saturday afternoon protesting for Palestine. The soldier is the one fighting the biggest battles on the inside. You know, and those were the ones that I really had to take a lot of time to deal with, especially when I decided I was going to, you know, talking about, you know, the issues that were happening in Sri Lanka when the Tamil Tigers were fighting for their freedom, or the ongoing conflict in Israel and Palestine, or any human rights issue that exists. You know, you write about them and you explore them, but then you take it deeper and you're like, wait, it's not about these political issues. It's about power, oppression, greed, human nature. And then our best source for all of that is ourselves. And then I started talking about my oppression when I oppress, you know, when I'm chasing power, when I'm greedy. And that really changed the trajectory of my art and my work. And that brought me closer back to Sikh heritage, which was always talking about that. If you read any of the writings in the hymns and Sikh scriptures, there's no talk about growing your beard or wearing a turban. You know, this is a lot more heritage and cultural. This just talks about your lust, your greed, your anger, your attachment, your ego, how these things impact our happiness. And there's no talk about this is a sin, this is right, this is wrong. There's just writings from people who are trying their best to have a healthy relationship with what they consider the truth. And they're sharing it poetically. And I think, and for our people being in North India, you know, North India has been the front door for invaders since like Alexander the Great. And for any group of people to have art, you need some stability. We didn't have the stability out there. So the moment, you know, our families started coming and crossing the pond over to North America, like in the 60s and the 70s, we're that generation who had that stability to explore. So that's why you're seeing an explosion of it. That's why you have Rupi Kaur. That's why you have Lily Singh. That's why you have Just Rain. That's why you have me. You're having this first crop of artists, but now that's the beginning of the wave. Because when people ask me, who's the artistic person in your family? I don't know. I don't know if it's my mom or my dad. They were never given the opportunity to explore creativity. My father has a master's degree, and he didn't have an opportunity to explore that. You know, he came to Canada and drove a cab. And so for us, it's trying to pick up where they left off, because we never had, and even in our history as people, we don't have a lineage of poets. We have maybe 2 or 3. We don't have a lineage of artists and painters. A lot of that, there's a lot of hiccups in our history because of invasions and, you know, most recently when the British came and they changed a lot of stuff. So for me now it's about finding myself, but also trying to continue this heritage. And the challenges are not so much people on the outside, but also people on the inside. Because fundamentalism is people who find comfort in the past. And people are like, hey, this is what a guy with a beard and turban is supposed to do. You're not looking like that. You're not acting like that. You're making us uncomfortable. So I get a lot of resistance internally within the community. And I, instead of having a chip on my shoulder being like my people and my culture don't accept me, I have to recognize that, hey, they're speaking their fear, because now I'm in a position of influence. And not only, they want me to adhere to culture because they're afraid that I can rewrite culture. And that's the challenge. But it's my job. To continue the story and write culture and understand that, hey, my parents had this many tools. You know, I have the education and the life experiences with this many tools. What can I do to ensure that the next generation has this many tools? So it's been an interesting journey, but I think me and specifically Lily, just, you know, because I stay with her out here and we spend a lot of time together, we talk about this a lot as to recognizing our influence. Like, people are copying my tattoos. People tie their turban the way I tie it. And you're like, okay, well, there's a responsibility here now. And then also just with the newer generation, you know, folks don't care. They don't label as much anymore. You know, Generation Z, they don't care what you are. You know, and what influence are we having on them, and how can we have a positive influence? So for me, it's like the overarching theme I'm always encouraging and trying to shove down everybody's throat is not look like me, act like me, dress like me. It's chase self-awareness like me. And if you want to be like me, that means being the best version of you, whatever that is. You know, and if that's a purple mohawk and a tutu and roller skates to work, then do it. You know, that's what I'm encouraging everybody to kind of do within their own, and be your own student of the truth. And you don't have to look a certain way to make that happen.
Couldn't have said it better. That's something. That's why you wrote the book. My next question is going to be about happiness, because I think happiness. A lot of times we think about happiness as a feeling, but you talk a lot about happiness being a mindset. And I really want to get into what that means. More specifically, how do you define that? How is happiness a mindset? And then what have you done and what can others do to sort of cultivate this mindset of happiness?
One step before that, I do not believe it's important or even possible to be happy all the time. I actually think that would be detrimental to our lives. We rarely learn anything when we're happy.
That's very true.
You know, as Bill Gates said, success is a lousy teacher. We learn when the shit hits the fan. And unhappiness is simply when the picture in our head doesn't match the picture in front of us. And now, I may not be able to control the picture in front of me, but I have much more control in the picture in my head. So managing my expectations and having that power allows me to decide how happy I am a lot more often. In no way, shape, or form am I saying people who have dealt with severe trauma can just, now I'm happy. Like, I'm not encouraging that at all. But I am encouraging a lot of taking a lot more responsibility. Because when we take responsibility, it's not necessarily taking the blame, it's empowering ourselves. If I blame you for all my circumstances, then you have all the power in my circumstances. If I take some personal responsibility for my circumstances, even the 1% of whatever it is, now I have 1% more power. So for me, happiness is a mindset, because the recipe for happiness is very simple. It's gratitude. It's appreciation. If I bought you a Lamborghini, you're happy because you appreciate Lamborghinis. You know, maybe if I bought you a puppy, you wouldn't appreciate it because you're like, this guy just gave me a bunch of work.
What about a puppy and a Lamborghini?
A puppy that can drive a Lamborghini.
Oh, you just took it to the next level.
Yeah, a puppy chauffeur.
Oh, that would be amazing. What would you call him?
Speedy.
Speedy? Okay, I like that. I like that. I call him Ronald.
Ronald?
Yeah.
That works too.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off. But
No, not at all.
I love
like
side
that.
tangents because I feel like that's...
Ronald, the puppy that drives the Lambo that always finds parking. The best
always
spots.
finds parking.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, he just loops the block a couple times.
Yeah, and
right?
he just says, "Yo, let me just drop you off at the front. You handle yours. I'll worry about parking."
And you're like, dude, yeah, I love that.
He would be the most popular guy in LA.
He seriously would.
Yeah.
We should actually start a little Instagram for him already, because I feel like...
But he'd probably be too cool for this. He'd probably be at Coachella.
Oh, he would be. He'd be on his way out to Coach. Actually, no, you're right. If he was on his way, he's already there.
Yeah.
He's probably already there.
He's
right
already
now.
there. Yeah.
So I like the way this is going, because there's a lot of what you guys don't know. I mean, you probably can tell none of this is what was planned, but we're kind of just freestyling right now.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a lot.
You're gonna hear
more.
from my publicist.
Oh, I know.
She's like, we made all these very interesting, boring questions, and you didn't ask any of them.
Well, we did. We've interwoven some of them.
Okay.
We've interwoven some of them. But I want to talk about hip-hop right now.
Yes.
One of my favorite topics. I know it's probably one of your favorite topics.
Yes.
And I think that hip-hop has had a pretty big influence on you and your writing style.
Yeah.
And I really want to talk about your hip-hop past and present, and how it has influenced the way that you wrote this book. Because for you that don't know yet and who don't have a copy of the book yet, which I'm sure you all will, pre-order. You can pre-order on Amazon.
So it's actually out. I think my publicist gave you the wrong note. It came out April 9th.
It came out April 9th,
so we're
it is
out.
already out on Amazon. There are some free copies for those of you brave enough to adventure into the front row. But
there's literally free copies on the chairs.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, the book is written in a very, I would say, unique way. whereas using lots of quotes and then expounding upon said quotes. So I want to understand hip-hop. How has it influenced you and how you wrote this book?
So I got two older sisters, so when I grew up, whatever music I listened to was whatever they listened to. So I'm listening to New Kids on the Block and George Michael, and Vanilla Ice was probably the first rap, Ice Ice Baby was probably the first rap song I had memorized, because these are the top 40 pop tracks that my sisters, when they were young girls, they were listening to. The thing with hip-hop specifically, and it might be for other genres of music, I've just personally never had that experience, is there's always going to be that one song that hits you with such tenacious reality that it just hits you and you have an involuntary reaction to it. And for me, it was actually in high school with Outkast. Andre 3000, I came into this world high as a bird from secondhand cocaine powder. I know it sounds absurd, and just hearing those lines and then seeing this cool rapper, wearing a turban in his music videos, with like 5 half-naked ladies making everything look like this super futuristic, both futuristic and nostalgic African royalty vibe. And you're just like, I've never seen this imagery before. And it just hits you to this level where you're just like, I want more. And you just go into this deep dive. And for me, I think I got really exposed to a lot more of the heavier, deeper hip hop. So I'm talking about like Lauryn Hill, Outkast, Goody Mob, Common, Wyclef's first project, all the ruckus movements, so Black Star, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, all of this stuff really resonated with me. It felt like modern day Bob Marley. It felt like this universal stuff that hit me. And I already enjoyed putting words together. I've been writing short stories and poems and everything since I was 7, 8 years old, and loved sharing it. And to see these guys do it on such an elite level, it really impacted me. And it was probably the first foundation of my authentic self-confidence. I was connecting with these people, and they were telling stories that mattered. And hearing rappers, when you're in high school and you look like Master Splinter because you have like 3 strands of a beard, and all your friends are starting to date, but you don't have the confidence to ask to ask any girl out, and plus you don't feel attractive. And even the men that are have these beautiful turbans and full beards, you don't look like them either. You're in your transition period. You're going from your duckling to swan, but at the same time it impacts you. And a lot of young guys, they cut their hair. They want to fit in. They want to blend in. And I think for me, hip hop helped me see the value in who I was, and hearing rappers say, like Pusha T, the power's in my hair, and just hearing certain things, it emboldened me a lot. And I realized it was not only, it saved my life in so many occasions. And then as I got older, I felt I needed to contribute. I owed it to hip hop to contribute and write that next song for that next kid in high school, whatever they're dealing with, whether they're dealing with their weight, whether they're dealing with the fact that they don't have 2 parents, whether they're dealing with the fact that they're in love with somebody that they're not allowed to be in love with. Anything. I wanted to tell their stories because I realized that's what hip hop did for me. It told my story when I couldn't tell it myself, but it gave me the strength to write my story. And as human beings, that's all we've been doing. We've been carving stuff on caves for the next generation, and we've been telling stories and passing stories down. And not only does that record our history, that also helps us pave our future. And for me, that's why hip hop to me is so important. And also from a literary art perspective, it's the most challenging, technical, it's the best form of literary art. Jay-Z is significantly much more talented than Shakespeare, in my opinion. You take a popular rock song and you print it out, it's like this many words. You take any rapper's verse, it's this much. And when you think of your Jay-Z's and your Lil Waynes, these guys don't even put pen to paper. They're building all of this in their heads, and I'm going straight to the microphone. And they didn't do it for the novelty of it. They did it out of a necessity in their life, because some of them didn't have the tools to write anything down. And so for me, it's the evolution of literary art to a point that I don't think many people are appreciating it. And that's why I do appreciate having Humble the Poet as my name, to try to elevate the art form in itself.
Totally. So, I mean, I'd love to, if, with your blessing, I'd love to actually just like this book. By the way, I am a slow reader, and I mean that. Like, if I had to read this front to back, this is real talk. It'd probably take me about a month to get through it. I'm being vulnerable right now, but this book is really cool because it's almost like a magic 8-ball on steroids that also just knows you personally. You can flip it open to any spot and find a gem.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm not a reader either. I mean, I have a full bookshelf now because every time you have a meeting with a publisher, they send you home with a bag of books or they'll mail you a box of books. So I got all the cool books. But this book was, I taught the 3rd grade. So I thought to myself, what if you can explain it to an 8-year-old, you can explain it to anybody. And so I made a book for people who say they don't like reading books because the teacher in me knows everybody loves reading. They just haven't found that right book. And the big thing I used to tell my students' parents were like, hey, if they want to read the back of the cereal box, let them. Our goal is to get them to love reading, not love reading something specific. We'll find the academic stuff later. Right now, we just need them to find that one book. Because once they find that one book, they'll be hooked on reading. And for me, my goal was to make that book for people who don't read. And it's been a challenge, especially working with publishers, because they want to hit that target market. And I was like, I want to hit that market that doesn't know they need this book, not just the market who has read every other book that might be in the same vein.
That's total.
But you can definitely open this book up to any page, and we'll do it live right now. And I feel like you'll find something you connect with.
All right, so I want the audience right now to give me, don't say anything.
You guys can try yourself if you have a book. And there's some in the front row if anybody's bold enough to move up.
Pop one open if you want. And right now, just like hold an intention, right? What are you feeling right now?
Oh, you guys going to make it mystical?
Oh, we're going to make it mystical. Are you kidding me? I can't be sitting up here with humble.
They already think I'm mystical because they got a beard. Now you're going to make it even worse.
let's complete the facade here.
All right, let's complete the facade.
It's all, it's about making a vibe.
Y'all going to turn me to the modern day Osho.
Hey, if the shoe fits, All right, here we go. The strongest don't survive. The most adaptable do. Facts. Let's talk about that. What does that mean?
I think it's just a challenge on some of the cliche things you hear. So, only the strongest survive. Me leaving the safety and security of being an elementary school teacher, a government job that happened in Canada, where all my colleagues were my friends and the priority were the kids and nobody was in competition with me. Everybody was getting paid whatever they got paid, and your pay grade went by raises. And then I left that to go into the world of entertainment, which is the jungle in comparison. And the first people that recognized my talent weren't looking to help me. They were looking to rip me to shreds or profit off of me. And what I realized was it wasn't my strength that was going to help me move forward. It was going to be my ability to adapt, learn, and move forward. And especially as a stubborn individual, that was a big lesson I had to tell myself, that is, hey, you have to adjust your sails. You can't control the wind. You have to adjust your sails. And for me, that's kind of where this idea came from. And I mean, I'm sure Darwin would agree. It's the adaptable ones that kick it. And I think very often, translating that into our modern society, it's not the most talented people that are going to succeed. It's the people with the grit, the people with the perseverance, and the people who are willing not to adjust their goals, but people who are willing to adjust their strategies and their routes to get there.
Well said, well said. Now, I want to be respectful of time because I definitely get a sense everyone's really paying attention and super focused. You don't understand. This is not generally a laptops down community, so we try to multitask everything. Okay. And I don't know if you've noticed, I don't even see one out. Everybody's just eyes forward right now. So I sense...
we got one with the laptop. He's like, oh, crap, let me close it.
No, okay, so he's probably doing something super official that's related.
Hey, you know what, I'm not... Listen, I'm one of the people who is lucky enough to get invites to Zeitgeist, and even once in a while I got to pull out my laptop.
Every once in a while.
Sometimes conversations get long, you're like, I got to check that email. I get it. Life happens in real time, I get it.
So, I mean, if you're cool with it, I'd love to... I feel like keeping it mystic. I'm getting a sense that there are some questions out there in the audience for you.
I'm just saying, you're making it mystic. I don't want anyone to think that I consider myself mystic.
I just like mystical things. So,
okay.
But are you cool with?
Yeah, I'm saying even like 100%.
Alrighty, this is a cool mic. Watch how this
that?
works. Question back there. Check this out. Almost over.
Hi.
I apologize.
Can you hear me?
Oh my God, that's a microphone.
Yes.
That is fly.
Around squares. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's coincidence, or it's meant to be, that I just finished watching Nipsey Hussle's funeral service, and then coming into this, because that was speaking the truth, and so is this. On that note, who is your top modern favorite rappers?
Artistically, probably Andre 3000.
Okay.
Just everything he does has just been fantastic. I think, talking about Nipsey Hussle in terms of people who drop the most gems and the jewels, it'll probably be in their work. Probably Jay-Z drops the most wisdom. He's not really known for it, but if you take a listen, especially his 444 album, that's like a manual on how to be an adult. It's such a fantastic album.
Actually, my angel number is 444.
444? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that one's really good. I got 2 chapters in here dedicated to lessons I learned from 50 Cent.
Awesome.
So they're there as well. So 50 for me is a big one. And actually, Nipsey Hussle, it was a, and that's still a heartbreaking situation. But probably a week before it all happened, we had just connected on Twitter. And my goal, and I landed here in LA on, I got the news, I was flying back from India, so my flight was from Mumbai to Frankfurt, and Frankfurt to LA, and then landing in Frankfurt, I found out, I got the news. And one of my goals was like, all right, you're gonna let go of your Canadian sensibilities, and you're gonna find this guy, you're gonna keep poking at him until he meets you. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not gonna take no for an answer. And that was on my to-do list, this trip to LA, and it was a very heartbreaking situation, but I do, for those, a lot of people have heard the news of Nipsey Hussle. I do really encourage you guys to check out his interviews. He is one of the most, and that's how we connected, because I said he's one of the most important minds and has one of the most important stories of our generation. Mm-hmm. And I think he appreciated that, and we connected that way. But, his story, his credits have rolled, and all we can do is continue his legacy. But beyond that, 50 Cent, Andre 3000 as an artist. I'm loving what Gambino does right now. I got to meet him years ago, and he reminded me that the only reason I should be doing this is because it's fun. He chases the fun, and when you look at his work, you realize he's literally chasing the fun. Yeah. So I'm really trying to follow in his footsteps and do the same.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great question. You want? Okay. All right.
So how often do people get hit in the head?
Yeah. So it's soft, it's plush. In there somewhere is a tiny microphone.
Oh, it's a tiny microphone. So it's not like one of these.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't want to get hit in the head with
No, you wouldn't want to, but you might. He made it. Look.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did. I'm expecting it.
Okay, cool. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming today. Where do you I know you're talking about like a new slate or roster, like artists, particularly Indian artists, kind of. Rising now. Where do you view, have you seen Gully Boy yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen the film, but I've seen the track.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So I was just curious, if you had exposure to the growing yet nascent hip-hop scene in India, and where do you think that's going?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic on so many levels. So coincidentally, when I was in Mumbai, we ran into Ranveer, who stars in that movie, at a party, and I have it on my Instagram. He rapped still DRE end to end.
Wow.
And then later on in the party, he rapped hypnotize end to end. Like, he knew all the words. The thing is with hip hop is like soccer for music. It's the most universal, accessible musical art, because you don't have to pay for expensive guitar lessons. You don't have to pay for equipment. All you need for hip hop is a story and a beat, and we all kind of come with a heartbeat, out the box. It's also the tool of the underrepresented to tell their stories. So in terms of hip hop right now, it started, 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx, and it expanded slowly but surely. And outside of English speakers, the next language that has had a couple of decades under their belt is French. So So French hip hop has evolved magnificently. The thing is, all the necessary ingredients for hip hop to exist have always been in India. All the major languages in India, Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Urdu, Madrasi, all these languages, they're already poetic. They're already made to rhyme. As I said, like all the hymns that my mother taught me growing up, they all rhyme. All the hymns are written in poetry. You could rap them.
Yeah, the Mahabharata is like the longest poem ever.
Exactly. They're already poetry. So now this is just adding poetry to your heartbeat. So from that perspective, it's kind of always been there. It's kind of like when they realized, when the NBA realized, hey, if we go to Africa, everyone's so tall, we can start grooming these players to join the league. I feel like that's India's time right now. They're grooming the players because, you can't even compare a hood in the U.S. to a slum in India. It's a completely different level of what they're going through, and their stories are so important, and their emotions are so raw, and the art is so prevalent there. And India is also, the mother of percussion. India and Africa is where percussion came from. So from that perspective, it's such a natural fit and it's so exciting. Where it is right now, it's amazing. So, Raftar, who's one of the most prominent rappers out there right now, he's a good friend of mine. But at the same time, it's cool because on his hand, he has a game tattoo. He was inspired by the game, and he's probably a bigger artist globally now. And so for me, it's been exciting to be able to connect with these guys, drop a track with these guys once a year, explore rapping in Punjabi, explore rapping in Hindi, kind of making it all happen. I try to do it more authentically the way I would probably do it here, which is I speak half English, half Punjabi when I'm with my friends. I would rap and do the same thing. And there's that movement, Desi Hip Hop, and just meeting a couple of other artists and how they're doing it. So I'm actually working with a company called Savan as well, which is owned by Jio, which is the big telecom company out there, and they're putting cell phones in everybody's hands. So the movement is coming, and I know they just recently released a track. Ranveer actually has a track with Nas. And it's fantastic because what's popular there is what was popular here in the 90s. So it's like that boom bap, the hardcore stuff. They don't want you to slow it down. Like they want that Eminem. They want that lyrical miracle, super fast stuff. And out here you're being taught, hey, no, you got to make it more melodic. You got to make it simpler to understand. You have to make it more digestible. So it's a breath of fresh air, and I'm looking forward to contributing to that culture the best way I know how, and kind of moving it forward. And Bollywood has always had this reputation of kind of being a parody of North American culture. Like they'll have their cheesy version of Spider-Man. They'll have their cheesy version of whatever. This is an opportunity for us not to have a cheesy version of hip-hop. We can have an authentic version of it, and we can look to, especially for me, I believe we should look to folks in France, because they found that. And I feel like the UK is doing the same thing. UK, they had a lot of rappers in the beginning. Then once they found grime, that became their own thing. And I think that's kind of what it is. You have to sound like your heroes until you find your own voice. And I think India is having its time to sound like their heroes, but I want us to find our own voice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Thank you so much for coming over here. My question is more about like philosophy and of Sikh.
Yeah.
To me, it was always something to do with warriors and the warrior spirit.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like in your life overall, how does it impact you? How do you apply it daily through life's, I don't know, trials, obstacles, and?
I think, we have, in one of the symbols, we have a double-edged sword, and the double-edged sword, represents Midi and Pidi, which is like spiritual power and temporal power, or being involved politically. So, historically, there were saints, there were soldiers, and everything in between, and now it's amalgamated where you're supposed to be the saint and the soldier. But I think from a pragmatic level, it makes a lot of sense. You're not being encouraged to isolate yourself from the world and sit in your room and meditate all the time and avoid challenges, avoid temptation and avoid all these things. You're encouraged to be out in the world and be assertive and view things accordingly. So for me, I know, growing up, I probably connected much more with Malcolm X than I did Martin Luther King. I connected with Kanwer Singh much more than I did with Mahatma Gandhi. People who were a lot more, many people don't even know that, like Nelson Mandela, there was a militant wing to some of the things that he did in the early on, and I think for me, I always kind of viewed people that is a lot more pragmatic and understanding that sometimes, when fighting oppression, you have to fight. You can't simply sit in or do a hunger strike. You have to actually fight. You have to speak up, and now in modern sense, for me, that just means, you can't be passive aggressive. You have to speak in straight lines. You have to be clear with people. Peace isn't always available, and peace can't always be a priority. And I love a quote from Steve Jobs where he talked about the rock tumbler, and everyone criticizing him for the friction at his office, and he's like, you put rocks in a rock tumbler and the friction polishes all the rocks. And I noticed that with myself, and I grew up in a challenging neighborhood in Toronto where we spoke a certain way to each other, and then once I got a little bit older and started meeting people from other neighborhoods, realizing that I was considered crass or rude, and not feeling that I was myself. I felt I was just a direct communicator, and feeling that it's okay for there to be a little bit of conflict. It's okay for there to be a little bit of friction, because from that a lot can grow. We as a species are safer now than we've ever been, but we're more sensitive to negative news and negative violence, and I think that we might be doing ourselves a disservice because of that. And so for me and my heritage, really promoting being prepared all the time, it really means being able to operate in any ecosystem, and for me that's always been being the guy who stood out. I could never be a fly on the wall when I went certain places, or being in a country where 99% of the people think I'm Muslim, and 101% of the time I'm randomly screened, at the airport, and really being mindful of this, and saying to myself, okay, well, what are the things I can do? And saying, hey, well, 20 years ago, the average American, if they thought beard and turban, they thought Osama bin Laden. What can I do now, so when the average person thinks of beard and turban, they think of Humble, and when they think of Humble, they just think of funny, silly guy, like fun-loving, great person, as opposed to he represents. And I'm sure no other gentleman with a beard and turban would have an issue being seen as a fun person, versus what we had to deal with. Me growing up, going to New York the first time in like 2004, and the type of challenges that I went through with that. But now, as an adult, I see the value in that. If I had children, I probably wouldn't want to shield them from that. I think it built a lot of character, and it put me in a position. And as well, I think the irony of how the story has moved now is, there's so much, I grew up in a world where people were pushing us to tolerate diversity. And I think now we're realizing that we don't tolerate diversity, we celebrate diversity. Diversity, multiculturalism, all of that, it's fantastic. Thank you. Well, you guys are dope. This is LA, so you guys are all fantastic out here. But I think it's just at a point now where people are seeing the benefits of it. It is good for every single person, and we have so much more in common than we have differences. And now it's a challenge for even me to speak to my community and be like, all right, you guys wanted to be accepted because you chose to wear turbans and beards. You guys need to accept that man for loving another man. You need to accept that woman for loving another woman. You need to accept that person over there who decided they grew up one way, but they want to be something else. And you don't get to have an opinion on their choices, especially since their choices have no impact on you, and it's just challenging a belief that you have. So I'm seeing this, and I've experienced racism at the hands of homosexuals, and kind of being like, hey, we're supposed to be on the same team here. We're oppressed minorities in some sense. But you realize that, human nature has this kind of really, divide and conquer is a very efficient way to control people. So trying to be mindful of that, and finding the best ways to fight those battles. And I was actually telling some friends back home, I said, the Sikhs are known for being warriors, but we started losing a lot more battles when the battles became, when the bullets became information. We don't have the necessary mechanisms in place when it's information warfare. We don't have relationships with the media to change stories if people are being attacked. We don't have the necessary relationship with sponsors to be like, hey, you know, this publication is spreading false information. You know, can we lean on them with your sponsorship dollars to ensure that doesn't happen? We don't have the most effective lobbying groups, you know. So this is our next level of warriorness, because, you know, folks are still thinking warriors is picking up the sword. And it's not. The battles are internal, and the new external battles are not going to be fought on the battlefield anymore. They're going to be fought behind the computer. They're going to be fought with, you know, political donations. They're going to be fought that way. And I think just learning that learning that art of war, I think, is important for everybody in general. And specifically, that's something that I'm trying to push upon people in my community.
Thank you. Thank you.
We got the wrap up.
All right, so I think we're kind of out of time for questions, but I'm curious if we have time for one more special thing. All right, so a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? But I feel like a spoken word is priceless. And we talked about this beforehand. Yeah. I'd love to get you to give us some spoken word right now.
Definitely. Okay, so this one I wrote in honor of my father. It's called Life of an Immigrant, and it was inspired by his story. So my father came to Canada in the early 70s. He had a master's degree in economics, but he immediately got to work in a furniture factory while he saved up to get his taxi license, and then he drove a taxi probably from like 75 to 2015 when he retired. And he was always an academic, but never got to pursue academics. And I always thought that was super interesting, and it did help me develop a big chip on my shoulder as to what I needed to be to prove his sacrifices right. And that in itself became a challenge for me. But I did write a piece in his honor. It's called Life of an Immigrant. Told him the grass was greener, with an endless flood of possibilities. Katrina, watch him drown in debt. Land confiscated by the local government, so he flies high in a jet. Plain clothes just exposed him to the harsh winters of life, and his wife won't know about the sweat soaked in the bank notes sent home. Boy getting grown, he starts to groan. His stomach's rumbling. Hungry for a better life, now he's stumbling over foreign phonetics and those verb tenses. They laughing at his accent. It's not an accident, though, that his master's in economics isn't honored. Most economic for a father to hop his ass in a cab and never bother getting out that car or his dreams. Memorize the route and collect the fare. It isn't fair when they say you don't belong here with your long beard and that towel around your head. Hear what was said. Soak in the hate. Can you relate? Life of an Immigrant. Thank you.
I gotta say, man, it's been a real fun time talking to you.
I had a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it.
I feel like we're just, you know, just homies up here, which is like the best way. They say you learn.
And I appreciate everybody here for skipping Coachella to come see me. That's the story I'm telling myself. They all had free tickets.
Oh, they all did.
And they're like, no. This is probably the entire population of LA that's not in Coachella. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate every single one of you.
Exactly. If you notice, your Uber ride was like lightning speed.
I got here just like, normally it's like 45 minutes, and I got here in like 7.
Yeah, exactly. You probably got here before you left. Well, I really got to say, man, thank you for sparing the time and coming through and really talking to us. I really hope that everybody got a lot out of this. As we noted, Humble's book, Unlearn, is out right now. You can definitely, if you did not get here early enough to get your own copy, you can definitely buy a copy off of Amazon. It's a great book. I have not finished reading it yet, but the best part is every single day I can just pop open to a new page, and it's just like exactly what I needed.
Thank you.